Clerk of court would go in to the sanctity of the jury room before he testified and tell the jurors, don't be fooled by his testimony, watch out for his body language, and that is what the sworn testimony that we have filed in court today says. And if that is true, which we have every reason to believe that it is, and no reason to believe that it's not, there's no choice but the courts to grant a new trial.
Bob Murdaugh, I want to talk about whether the financial crimes will be brought in, but I also want to talk in relation to that, what Jim Griffin just had to say, that the clerk said, you know, don't be fooled by him. But his trial testimony comes in on the next trial. It's an admission against interest, isn't it?
It is. You know, I don't see there's any way for them to avoid it coming in, even if he doesn't testify in a second trial. I think that it's of record, and you know, it's against his own interest, and it's going to get in one way or another. It'll be interesting to see how exactly, you know, because I was actually tweeting the exact same question yesterday. Is he going to, if there is another trial, is he going to testify this time? And I don't know that it matters. I mean, like, frankly, in terms of what he's going to say, it would essentially have to mirror it. Otherwise, they're going to impeach him all day in terms of what his testimony was in the first trial. So it's a fascinating thing. But, you know, as far as what was going on with Becky Hill, I mean, if these allegations are true, it's unequivocally a Sixth Amendment violation. I mean, you just cannot do that. And she holds sway. It's not like it's, you know, I mean, we talk about, like, in our courts, we have a bailiff that basically caters to the jurors if they have to eat lunch, you know, anything that they may need. It's a bailiff. We rarely have the clerk ever mixing with the jury like this woman was, and they certainly aren't going to the extent where they're talking about, and the timing of it is strange because it's right after the state's case in chief was over. It's after the holiday, and they're coming back and they're starting, and that's when she approaches them and says, hey, you know, you got to take this guy with a grain of salt. You know, you got to watch what he's saying. You know, you can't trust him, which two of the witnesses / jurors have said, look, I took that as her saying that he's a liar. You know, so I mean, you just can't do it. I mean, as much as we may detest Alec Murdaugh, you know, the Constitution applies to all of us.
So, Afi Patterson, let me just ask you a question then. You've already opined on whether there would be a different judge, both you and Bob. So I want you to opine on two other things. Will there be a different location, and the financial crimes motives? It's all throughout his testimony. So does it come in as a motive for the state in the next trial, if there is one? How is this going to work?
I think they absolutely can introduce it during the next trial. I think if I recall correctly, it was introduced in the first trial, and it was pretty voluminous, but it was cut back a little bit. But I think you absolutely can introduce it in the second trial. And also, if I can just go back to this clerk saying this information to the jury, I think it is, like Bob said, just kind of pretty unorthodox. You usually have a bailiff and jurors, they don't really understand how the court system works. So if you have someone with authority coming to you saying, you know, don't believe this guy, you know, you're going to listen to him. And if you encourage somebody to quickly reach a verdict, you're going to listen to them because they come from a place of authority. So again, to answer your question, I do believe they're going to introduce the financial crimes. The prosecution's got a second bite at the apple, and they can introduce it in a more concise manner. And
Yeah. All right, so let's listen to more of what Attorney Griffin had to say.
So immediately in the aftermath of the verdict, we had received information that we needed to look into what happened in the jury room. We started down that road, and we met a zone of silence. No jurors would speak to us. And so we were, you know, what I like to call, we were given the Heisman, right? And then when the clerk of court wrote her book, published her book, that zone of silence collapsed. And jurors were upset about that, the ones we talked with, and they were more than willing to come forward and tell us the things that we had sort of heard through a whisper campaign. But, and so as a result of that, we were able to interview some jurors. Now, there's still a number of jurors who maintain that zone of silence, who have not talked to us. We did try to reach out to most all of them that we could get in touch with, but you know, the information we got, I can tell you, was independent of each juror. The first juror we talked to, we got information about Ms. Hill saying, don't be fooled. And then the second juror, independent of the first juror, says the same thing, and the third juror, independent of the other two, say the same thing. And so we're very confident that the information is accurate.
Afi Patterson, I want to come back to you, though. Since Murdaugh is supposed to plead guilty on September 21st in federal court to the financial crimes, does the hearing about the court clerk here even matter to whether or not it's going to be life in prison for him or whether he'll ever get out?
No, I don't think so. I think those are two separate things. I don't know what his exposure is with the financial crimes, but what's happening in his this murder trial has nothing to do with his financial crimes issues.
So, Bob Murdaugh, if there is a hearing for Rebecca as the court clerk, does she have to take the Fifth Amendment if there is a crime being charged? Can she waive it? And so the question I have to you is twofold. Answer that, but then tell me, is it likely that Murdaugh could be free on some kind of bail and she could be in jail on some kind of crime? Could this be an Alice in Wonderland kind of thing that we'll all be writing books about?
As far as the Fifth, I mean, it's certainly going to be an option for her. I mean, she's the one who's going to have to make that choice, and she's going to have to discuss it with her attorney, who I'm sure she's going to have an attorney, because, I mean, if it comes out that, and she's going to have to come out and deny it, right? I mean, she's not going to be like, so is she going to potentially perjure herself? I mean, it's like the web of this thing is like incredible to me. And as far, so I mean, if she takes the Fifth, she's making an admission that it happened, right? I mean, like no one's going to take it any other way. So if she does that, I mean, I think it's game over and he's getting a new trial.
But let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask for both of you for a real quick opinion. It's one question. The jurors get under oath. They said, it doesn't matter what you said to us. Based on the evidence, I was going to find guilty. Would then Alex Murdaugh get a new trial? Afi.
And I think that's going to be the issue. Is what she said so substantial that it changed the minds of the jurors? Is her encouraging them to come to a quick guilty verdict? Was that enough to change the mind of the jurors? Was it enough when she told them, hey, don't trust him, look at his body language? Was that enough? I think from what I've heard in the affidavits, it was interference, and that is a reason to grant him a new jury trial. But, we'll see. It just depends on whether or not it was enough.
Bob,
Either whether it was or not, I think she was wrong.
I have to throw the break, so I need a one-word answer from you. Yes or no?
What was the question?
Yes. Any question. The question was actually, if the jurors say it wouldn't have changed their mind, that they were voting guilty based on the evidence, does the court overturn the verdict?
Yes, I think they have to.
Very interesting, because I may be of a different opinion here. But we'll have plenty of time to discuss that, I'm sure, over the next year, 2, or even 3. But we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll tell you about another case that we're following. Stay with us.